goes another 20-year-old.
Holy shit, I hate those guys.
Gotta hate 20-year-olds.
Fuck those guys.
Somebody help these 20-year-olds.
It's time to figure it out, Ricky. Don't touch me. Don't fucking touch me. We'll just do the old intro here. We're rolling. Producer Kev's live.
Hey there.
Can we get a countdown, Kev? Get that mic on here. Countdown, please, Kev. 5, 4. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Too Many Jams.
Show about all things 20-year-old with help from friends, experts, and our own personal experiences. We hope to shed some light on those things that leave our age group lost and confused.
That was a speedy intro there, Rob.
I'm just so excited to be here today.
Okay, you sure? Before we get into today's episode, we'll give a little preview. Our guest is Justin Teperman, legendary friend from university. And before we get into your story,
Of course.
let's try the beer. This is True History. It's an IPA. Our friends actually brew it and got it into the LCBO this year.
Cheers. All
Cheers.
for friends doing.
This is True History 12 Swans.
It's a good beer.
And you're not lying. Like, the people are always like, "Are you lying on there?
No,
you
no,
guys
no.
lying? It's good."
So
It's fantastic.
since I've got stories about everything,
Yeah.
in university, my roommate Sean Rosenthal and I, we actually drank a shit ton. Can I swear on here? Is this?
Yeah.
Yeah, shit piss
Okay.
dick. Yeah.
Like a shit ton of beer because we wanted to get like different bottle caps for like to fill a cork board. It was a bit of a collection. So we
Mhm.
definitely
That's neat.
refined our beers and like gonna say
It's
I'm really
Unreal.
enjoying this.
a little fruity. It's like a little not too bitter for an IPA.
Not too hot. Yeah.
I mean, I like it. And again, my motto is like you're gonna buy beer anyway. As long as it's good beer, why don't you get it from friends? Also, if you're gonna buy jewelry, get it from Wrist and Rye. Jams 15 for 15% off. And if you are looking at the video right now and you see a couple handsome young men, Tep, what did you say when you walked in today?
Trav, your hair looks phenomenal. Like, it
Bottle
looks great.
Rocket. Liv DiClavasio, Robbie's girlfriend, hooked us up with sponsorship. She's sponsoring our domes.
If you're going to get your hair cut, get it done at Bottle Rocket.
It's import credit, and she's got a deal going on now. If you go on her Instagram page, check it out. You can get $20 off, and then we're going to set up an ongoing deal with the podcast. But other than that, let's get into today's episode. Tep,
Yo,
it's been a little bit.
It
I know,
has been a
right?
minute.
It's been a minute.
I gotta say, getting older, it takes an effort to actually keep in touch with people. You think you're gonna be friends with everyone for the rest of your life, but you got to make that effort.
And that's what we love about the podcast because it's such an easy reach out for us. And like we've reconnected with so many people through this. Just getting people to come over here and chill, have a beer.
If nothing else comes with this podcast, if no self-development or no like anything comes out, at the very least, keeping in touch with friends and asking questions. Like, we've known each other a long time,
Totally.
never gone deep. I've never been like had one of those like serious chats about what's going on and shit.
100%. Robbie and I, on the other hand, definitely spent a lot of time. We're the same age. We were in the same year, things like that. But no,
Were
I
you guys
get
in the
that.
same class too?
Totally.
Yeah,
College class?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had a bit more of that.
yeah, for sure.
But for the most part, just guests in general, a lot of times, even if you chat a lot, you don't necessarily ask questions about like how they feel about their program, like life, like what they went through at certain
100%.
times. Like, it's a cool little therapy session. And at the end of the day, the only thing we realize is that everyone's just like kind of
Struggling to
Struggling
find their
to
way.
figure
Also,
it out.
you
Struggling.
know, just as lost as we are. So,
You
which
caught me
is
at a
kind of the
great
whole
time.
theme of the
so
show.
you're feeling especially lost these days.
Oh man, like no other. But I mean, like, hey,
If we gave a little preview, an external preview of like the areas we thought we were going to cover, we can just go right back to the beginning after that and just get your opinion along the way. And then if there's anything you want to bring up, just toss it in there. But the stuff we wanted to talk about with you when you first walked in, we kind of briefed on it, is you were actually the first openly gay guest that we've had.
Hey-o,
I think so, right?
I'll take that.
Yes.
So yeah. And there's a lot of questions because not only do you have that sexual preference, you also, when we were friends, as far as we were concerned, we're in the closet.
Yeah,
Like,
no, definitely not out.
And you spoke about how you have a really unique family situation with all that,
Mm-hmm.
and the transition from kind of putting on that straight guy act in the frat to
Totally.
embracing who you are now. We want to go through kind of all these things and then talk a little bit about the scene now, also what you're doing like for work and life. So I think we'll just keep it in chronological order, unless you want to Tarantino it.
No, by all means, we can
Yeah,
we can start from the beginning.
Start from the beginning, and then we'll take those things as they come up.
First question, just to get the ball rolling.
Mm-hmm.
When did you know?
I mean, it takes time. There's like, I'm sure as many other, gay people can understand, there's a coming out to yourself and then there's coming out to everyone else. And when you get to that point, when you actually accept the fact that like, this is something you want for yourself, that's when things start getting into motion. But I think, throughout high school, I definitely knew and was hooking up with guys.
Okay.
This was not a university thing.
Okay.
Like early on.
So in high school, then in middle school, it was probably like everyone else, because I wasn't even sexual until like, I don't know, probably like grade 7, 8.
I was gonna say
like
7, 8. It's definitely when you go to those clubs. Those all age. I mean, I went to those all ages. I'm actually reconnected with one of those girls that I first made out with at one of those like all ages clubs.
No shit.
Yeah, I bought her a Gatorade and she just started making out with me. I'll never forget that
Hey
moment.
babe, can I buy you a drink?
Waiter,
Blueberry?
It was blue.
Yeah,
100%. And I'm sure she and myself had probably already made out with who knows how many other people. She definitely did. Great girl.
Was it her first kiss?
Definitely not. Like 100% not this girl's nor her last. But yeah, no, throughout high school was definitely very interested. It was about grade 8, grade 9 when I really kind of dabbled and actually acted on it. And that's a long time from grade, 8 to after university to really kind of keep the secret.
Well,
inside.
were you more familiar with the concept? Like at what point, and again, if this is all cool to talk about, but you said you have two openly gay parents.
Yeah, so like starting from the back, like I mean, right up, my parents were married, happily married. They had known each other since they were 16, high school sweethearts, no doubt about it. I got married. They had my sister, they had myself, and by the time I was 7 or 5, I guess they had divorced. And by 7, my mom had come out. She said, I'm a lesbian, I'm dating a woman now. Yeah. And then 3 years later, when I was 10, my dad came out as well. So
you were familiar with what it was?
100%. And I don't mean to Tarantino this as we said before, but it's funny because people are always like, you have gay parents. It must be so easy to come out after that.
That was going to be one of our questions.
I'm jumping, but it's not. It's actually a lot. It's not a lot harder. I can't say, at the end of the day, your parents aren't going to be the ones kicking you out of the house, but it's still one of those situations where sometimes I think ignorance is bliss when it comes to these things. And when your parents really do know the ins and outs of the community,
100%.
It's kind of like,
whoa,
it's scary. There's a lot, and we can dive into this deeper if you want further on, but like there are a lot of things that go on behind these doors that a lot of straight people don't even know about.
It's like a weird example. This might be completely wrong, but it's like, when there's a guy and he says he's an MMA fighter, and like the last thing he wants is for his kid to become an MMA fighter
100%.
because he knows how hardcore it is. And like, so
Yeah.
it's like almost harder for you to come out because, as you said, they knew how of a hard time they had. And is it even possible, I don't know if this is something you guys have chatted about, that they kind of had an agreement throughout because of how hard it was to be?
No, there was no agreement at all. When my mom came out, it was news to my father. When my dad came out, it was news to my mother. Like there was no prearrangement whatsoever.
But it's kind of a beautiful coincidence, though.
I mean, yeah, it totally is. I think that is the highly misconception. Listen, growing up with my sister and I in our Toronto Jewish community, we had to deal with backlash from other families and things like that. We were very abnormal.
That's true
family.
because there's such like, I mean, the Jewish community in Toronto, just it seems everyone kind of knows everyone. Everyone's talking, gossiping all the
100%.
time, right? And
that's a lot of pressure.
Growing up with that and alone having divorced parents is like you're already a sore thumb, and then having gay parents is a bit kind of crazy. And rumors obviously started, and people were like, your mom cheated on your father, or your father did this with another man. Like never the case whatsoever. My parents were really good friends. I think they'd known each other since they were 16 years old.
And they probably understood each other better than most people because of what they each gone through, right?
Yes
Like,
and no. I mean, lesbians and gay people, very different entities. There's no doubt about that. We all kind of do like the same sex, but I think my mom is very borderline. Like, she, I'm not to disagree with you, of course, but like,
I mean,
when
you know better.
when it comes to them, it's like you're still dealing with apples and oranges. There's still women and men. Like, they're still very different.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yes, it was very helpful. I'm sure when my mom was, understood what my father was going through.
more meant like the secrets.
Totally, but like I don't think there was much,
So-
support. Still her ex-husband.
yeah, she's like, fuck this guy.
Yeah, like oh fuck, now him. Great.
So when did you eventually come out to your parents, and what was their reaction?
So I was 22, 23, I guess,
Yeah.
when we had just finished university. I had long story short, met someone, really liked them. They broke up with me because I was still in the closet. They're like, I don't want to be with someone who's really not true to themselves.
True.
And I was heartbroken, and I was like, listen, like if I'm gonna want to be able to love someone proudly and like be open about it, I got to come out. So it wasn't until I was 23, I did my father first, did my mother, and then my sister. Everyone kind of wound up finding out. It was a big weekend at Oshiega one summer, and I was full.
So did you do Friends at the same time as parents?
No, so like I remember, this is actually really funny. I was with some buds, and we were at at my friend Joey's cottage, and there were 4 of us, and I had said one person, Matt, didn't know that I was gay. Other 2 kind of already knew, and I said, I hear 1 out of 4 people are gay, and we went around the room, and I was like,
That's
I guess
hilarious.
that's me. And Madonic's like, really?
What
He's
if
like,
Madonna
"Yeah."
was like,
Yeah, that's me. I'm like, oh, well, you just screwed up. But, coming out to some people were a ton of fun. When it was time to go to Oshiega, it was just like a mass execution. Like, I had walked out. My partner was coming up to stay with me. And I walked out the door. Everyone's chilling on the patio, having beers, drinking, ready to go out. I'm like, and at the time, he was my ex. My ex-boyfriend's coming to stay for the night. Hope that's cool with everyone. If you need me to pay for it, like, I'll pitch. And then they're all kind of looking at me like, you heard that right, ex-boyfriend, good to go.
it's like, have you seen the interview with Dave Franco when Eminem is just? Have you not even seen this movie? It's just like
No.
this clip where Eminem's just like in mid conversation. It's a comedy, and he's like, yeah, people get on my case, for all my homophobic lyrics and stuff like that, and that's just really because I'm gay, and all this other stuff going on. And then Dave Franco's like, sorry, like repeat that.
Like, this bomb just dropped.
You just did that exact at Oshiega.
Exactly, and everyone was pretty cool with it. Obviously, like at the end of the day, I had told really who was important to me, other than my mom and my sister, who later found out, because here I am at Oshiega, surrounded by a ton of Jewish Toronto people, making out with this random guy, and I mean, word got back pretty quickly.
Yeah,
Within like 24 hours, my mom had sat me down and was like, are you seeing a guy?
that's how quick the Jewish community can disseminate
Insane.
information.
So one thing my father once said to me is, because he said, you'll be the talk of the town for maybe a week, and then something else will happen, and then everyone will move on. And it was true.
I mean, yeah,
It's
that sounds about right,
It's kind
yeah.
of. I mean, people are so like quickly like people are so passive with like news or like anything, like any like sort of media or whatever that comes out. It's like one story is hot for a second, and then like people just forget about it instantly because everyone has access.
But you see that now even on a global scale, even. Like,
yeah, it's,
Yeah,
a Trump,
exactly.
it's a Trump effect.
We're
Yeah.
so ADD when it comes to news that like something new and big, great. It'll pass within minutes, like relatively speaking.
Like I'm sure this was the case with some of your friends, but you technically kept it a secret, right? Through whatever you would have your public, but to your friends, you just didn't bring it up. It's not that I'm sure if somebody, I don't know if anyone would ever flat out ask, but I'm sure if somebody did, you'd probably.
Yeah, no, I definitely would have addressed it. I mean, there were people who had found out. There were people. There was only really one person that had told in my 4th year university. Funny enough, and then eventually more and more people found out. Now, there was someone who was openly gay in our fraternity at the time.
Yeah.
He totally knew.
He knew.
I never told him at all. But obviously, when you're hooking up with guys like to speak and and talk just as much as the Jewish community.
Well, because like that's the hot gossip too. Is probably
like who's in the closet.
Who's in the closet?
Like
exactly.
who's hooking up with who.
Do you think gay guys have a better sense of telling like who's sort of in the closet gay also?
So like
Is that
there's totally, people love talking about their gaydar. I don't really use that term. I don't use much terms when it comes to like the gay terms.
Yeah.
I may be an anomaly when it comes there. However, I mean, some people can tell. You know, and it's funny because when you come out and you're publicly about yourself, some people kind of go into hiding. Like some people are afraid to come up to you. Some people are afraid to talk to you to see like whether or not they're going to get that feeling like that you're gonna know their inner secret.
Interesting.
And that's I've experienced that before, and it's definitely a really interesting kind of thing.
The only so definitely because we lived with the Logan, which was the openly gay member of our fraternity, and definitely that's when the first I heard about it. About your fourth year, my fifth year.
Yeah,
and again, it's just one of those things where it just didn't fucking matter. Like you think that would be a big deal?
Absolutely not.
And I was just like, oh, all right. And then my only question was, because I was just like, but I have so many memories of him hooking up with girls. Was that bisexuality or was that just like fitting in?
Totally. And I say this to many other people as well. Like, it's easier to identify as one. There's no doubt about it. To be like bi, you're confusing people and things like that. When people ask, I usually say I'm like 80-20, 90, you know, like 90-10. Like don't find women revolting.
Okay.
I would 100% hook up with a girl. It's so much easier to hook up with guys. Like, no doubt. But other people are the opposite. They're like 100% one or the other. But when I was hooking up with these girls, and maybe if they're listening now, like all like 5 of them,
player.
Hey, I wasn't faking it. Like I liked it. I wasn't, remotely, and I was enjoying myself. It was just definitely easier to just conceal that part of my life throughout university, and I don't regret that at all.
It would be so much harder to go around and say I'm bisexual all the time, and then have people have this like line of questioning, like
there's so much questioning, and there's also a lot of stigma against promiscuous. Like people are promiscuous in the gay community. They have more STIs, which is not true. And so when it comes down to things like that, like women are very hesitant to hook up with guys. I was recently on Hinge and I matched with a girl.
Yeah.
And it didn't go anywhere, but I said like flat out, like I'm usually with guys. I hope you're okay with that. And she was totally cool with it. And we talked for a little bit. I even got her number. Didn't act on it because, like, I guess maybe I got a little nervous. It's been a while. But it was, definitely very interesting kind of aspect. And I was cool hooking up with girls in university.
Okay, yeah, that definitely pretty much seals off, I guess, that period of time. Unless
let's just be clear. Like, I was totally fucking a lot of dudes in university. Like, there is no doubt every chance and every point, like everywhere.
That's so amazing because
I'm talking missionary. I'm talking missionary.
What's the one where he's on top and I guess he's on the bottom?
It was
missionary.
100%. But like, I'm not kidding. Like Weldon, Taylor, like all my car in a parking lot, like Ivy building, like no matter where, all over campus. Like I was fucking dudes.
My one comment is I'm always as like a relatively like single guy, I'm always extremely jealous of gay guys like doing things that straight guys fantasize about with women.
Yeah.
On a fucking Tuesday afternoon.
Oh,
because
I'll tell you one thing. I wasn't Weldon. The car.
My bedroom.
I wasn't doing it.
Maybe my bedroom again.
No doubt I probably should have been studying. Like, let's just put that out there. Like, but listen, like it is a lot easier if you choose to go that pathway. There are guys out there who are very much more reserved. I want a more connection before I sleep with them. Unfortunately, I'm not one of those guys. Like at all. Like I don't care.
I identify as not being one of those guys either.
but because I think that is like a highly misconception is that like, yes, there's no doubt it's a lot easier to hook up with other guys at any point in time. It's really part of our culture, whether it's bathhouses or cruising spots. We can get into that later if you want.
Wait, or actually I'm curious.
Okay.
What is a cruising spot?
So before, like, it was never accepted for men to hook up with men, especially in like popular areas. So there were like designated bathrooms that were known that like if you walk into that bathroom, there'll probably be a bunch of guys wanting to get off. There were places like this that were busted all the time. And people were arrested for doing being gay essentially. And these things are always just part of our culture. And some people either embrace it or they're like, you're gross, you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
And I'm indifferent about it. I mean, I've definitely been in areas which it's like, whoa, this is very cruisy. For example, like gyms. Like I recently joined a gym.
Yeah.
And like specifically a Good Life. And I was just shocked at how many guys are like hooking up there.
This is We're oblivious to it, though.
Yeah.
You know this.
I'm saying maybe I'm like spoiling everything. I'm gonna
Who
get like
remembers that good life
blackballed.
for quite some time, and this
I
it's kind of news to me.
I feel bad sometimes, like especially this location. This location is notorious for being very gay.
Yeah.
But I feel bad for straight dudes that are like in here and maybe they're oblivious. I mean, I don't think I've seen many straight guys, but
I mean, if they're oblivious, then as you said, ignorance is bliss sometimes. Like, they don't fucking know.
yeah, no, 100%. You just wouldn't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable and things like that. Like there are times when I would look at someone being like, you're being an idiot about this. Like stop going from steam room to sauna to steam room to sauna trying to find someone. Like how many times do you have to go back and forth? Like I'm a very like I don't who uses two in the same time? Like that's ridiculous. I don't know.
So is there like just is this just banter between friends, or like where is this information disseminated? Like once you're in the community, you just have like people that kind of chat about stuff like this.
Well, I mean, listen, like this is why my story comes a little bit interesting, because I also have a gay father
Right.
who knows about these places.
Like a lifetime's worth.
Like it's kind of, this is, I don't want to go to these places. What if I run into, my father's married now, but what if like I had run into my father? What if I had run into one of his old friends that, that I grew up with? Like that would be super awkward for me.
Yeah.
And there'd be times when, I'd be driving with my father. I was working with him for a little bit of time and he'd be like, see that park right there? Like, see those guys in the car? They're just waiting to get blown. And I was like, Dad, like, I don't need to know these things. Why are you telling me this shit? Like, yes, I was out at the time.
Should be like a TV show, by the way. Or a movie.
I think someone, actually was producing a show about a gay man with a gay father.
Yeah.
And like I said, it definitely has its ups and downs. Like, I don't usually have to wait in line at certain bars because, he would spend a lot of money there. Like, not me, but hey, like, I'd be like, hey, I'm Sean's son. Oh, okay, come in.
So he's a bit of a legend.
I don't know about that. He just
spent a lot of money.
He spent a lot of money.
He just knows a couple spots.
He knows some
around
people.
town.
He knows. I think he knows who to buy drinks at a bar. Who to give hockey tickets to. I'm not kidding. Give hockey tickets to bouncers so he could get into bars. And he's also done a lot of demolition. That's kind of in the village. Like he does that, and he gives them good prices, and he helps him out a lot with respect to giving back to his community. And so like he does get has maybe a little bit of respect in that community.
So that word you use though, cruisy, is that a word to describe
It's
like
cruising? Totally, that's the term.
so
Just cruising. Okay.
so that bar downtown,
Not
Cruise and Tango,
that's spelled differently. I
That's
think.
spelled differently.
that's spelled differently.
Yeah,
Okay,
cruise
I was
and
wondering
tangos
if they
is
were
like a crew of
that had any
friends.
relation. Okay,
This is like going on like cruising's like going on a cruise. Like you're cruising.
I'm sure we
Okay.
could do a whole episode on straight up culture.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
But the thing is it's tough with these episodes to fit everything in.
Hey,
And with keeping things kind of in order, Rob, have we forgot about anything? I feel like we were talking about a few things right before we started.
maybe let's
Get back
just
to
like
this.
loop back to kind of like what he's doing, or like kind of job related, or like outside of that, and then maybe we'll swing back to culture and stuff near the end.
It's tough to lay the blueprint here. There's a lot to cover with you, my friend.
hey. So I mean, we can do this pretty quickly. I mean, back to the matter at hand. That was like, okay, like take us from beginning in the closet. Knew I was hooking up with guys from grade 8 on.
Yeah.
Came out at 22, 23 years old, and then started dating someone. It was I mean, hey, like
It was mental health, sir. That's what I was missing.
Yeah,
I wanted to ask about that.
Okay, sure. What do you want to ask about my mental health?
Just was it at each of those points, was there periods of anxiety, depression, anything associated, homophobic stuff? Like
100%. Internalizing yourself and like internalizing your internal homophobia even was very tough for me. I'm trying to come out. I'm trying to establish myself, but I have a gay father who's already kind of established himself. How do you make yourself different? How do you establish yourself different, especially from the precedences that he's set to my sister and I, more specifically, because that's who's important at the end. I don't care the precedents that he set to his friends, but within my family, which is to me my most important, my support system. How do you separate yourself from the positives and the negatives that had come with it? Because, for example, my sister and I really had to deal with a lot of negative backlash. There's no doubt about that. My father had changed as a person, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. And if I'm going to follow exactly in his footsteps, how can I prove that being gay may not always be so bad? I don't mean that in the wrong way.
Yeah,
but
no,
like,
I hear you.
Yeah.
But like when it came to that, so it was tough for me to internalize that. So yes, anxiety, 100%, unhappiness, 100%, pent up anger, like because you don't know what's going on in your life, 100%. And that's why like it took a lot of courage in my life to really just spill the beans to my father and be like, hey, I got something to tell you. And I remember he's like, how much do you need? Like, you're out. And I was like, no, like I'm gay. And he's like, that's fine. And apparently everyone already fucking knew anyways.
But there's always those movie moments where the son comes out to their mom or dad and they're always like, oh, I knew, honey. And that always hits me a little bit different, like in the Elton John movie.
I haven't seen the Elton John movie yet.
Oh, those scenes. I'm sure they're not as romanticized in real life when they're like, I know. You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, it's just more like, at the end, I think parents let you have your moment and then, maybe a week, maybe a month, maybe a year. It's like, obviously we fucking knew. Look at you. Like you're gay. Like, we know you liked guys. Don't worry about it. But with respect to my mental health, we can go back there.
Yeah.
I think a lot of myself and a lot of gay men do deal with depression.
Of course.
We struggle with this on a day-to-day basis. I know a lot of my friends. It's a weird sort of thing. I don't know if I can attest to it because I'm not, educated on how many men are depressed with, if they're gay, but because I can't throw statistics around. But I know for my personal self, like it's a tough go sometimes. There's no doubt about that. It's I've dealt with homophobia in the workplace before. I've had to deal with terrible breakups. And that's really what my mom was really concerned about when I came out with for her. It was like, I know this community. It's not always glitter and like and gold, essentially. There is a part of it that is pretty dark. And I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
And I'm sure just the same amount of manipulative, like asshole guys exists in both communities, right? That you hear about from girls.
Like, no doubt about it. I don't really want to dwell on this, but, I had a terrible ending of my first relationship. It really kind of shaped me to who I am today. And I'm still recovering. And like a lot of people, like just very normal. Like when you break up with someone, whether you're a guy, whether you're a girl, if it ends violently, like that will hurt you.
Well, I'm sure the moral of this story and the moral of like anyone that usually has a story, whether it was like something tough for like addiction, mental health, or like a different sexual preference, I think universally, the thing we always see is that it's the same things it's the same. It's not like
100%.
It's not like this big crazy, oh my God, like he was an addict. It's like we're the same person. We're a degree of decision making apart from being the exact same
100%.
person.
But I kind of feel like as a gay man, it's much easier for me to express these feelings. Like that's how I feel. Like I
for sure
can cry. Like I'm in a movie and I'm crying and I'm like, I don't feel emasculated at all. In fact, I actually recently am getting very annoyed when people do use the term like masculine. Because this is all subjective. Your term of like, I'll be on Grindr. Sorry, I'm sidebarring. But I'll be on Grindr and I'll see someone's profile and they'll be like, mask. Like, how masculine are you, man? Like, you're literally on a gay dating app looking to get filled by dick. Like,
but what if he's like into motorbikes and like
cool? And if you go and ask someone like, let's say Robbie, like, if you want to take dick in the mouth, is that masculine? Probably not. So like, but maybe. To other people, it's just so subjective.
People's definitions
it depends,
vary.
because to me, masculine, because my whole thing is, it's like, I don't really care what people fuck.
100%. Live and let live, right?
Live and let, right? So for me, masculine has always been like the things they're into. Like if you're into fashion, if you're into stuff like this, those are kind of feminine qualities. If you're into like punching people and like motorcycles and like these are usually more like maybe masculine things, sexuality aside.
It's an archetype kind of. It's like it's what
society said.
It's what we've made it.
Yeah, this is masculine. Masculine means nothing other than it's an English word with a culturally defined thing. It's not like when people get worried about labels, I'm like, we also invented this language. They're not like stone laden like from the gods definitions of people. So don't get mad if someone says shit like that.
Agreed.
Isn't there also sort of terms in the gay community for, like sort of your level or type of
of course. So
gay,
we can definitely get into that a little bit if you want, because it's funny because I think straight people love talking about like the labels because they are essentially what we even use today. Like they are on like even on apps and things
Yeah.
like that. Like you
Yeah.
describe yourself as like, are you a twink? Are you a bear? Are you, the boy next door? Are you a daddy? Which I hate that term, but I think that's just a personal preference because of my father. But
Yeah.
like,
Got you.
when your daddy's actually a daddy to somebody, it's like, oh man, I don't want to be called that. Like I don't want to even think about that. So like
That's
that
great.
hits close to home.
Yeah.
But like totally like. But that's why I think, kind of bringing things back together, like why my parents were kind of worried, not worried, but like concerned, like labeling is never a good thing.
Yeah.
But because of Hollywood, because of our society, that's kind of what we accepted it. Like, oh, you're a skinny boy with no hair on your body. You're a twink. Like, cool. Like, I may be the wrong person to ask about this because I don't like labels. I don't like those things. I become very sensitive and aware of my surroundings, which was a big change for me. And that's probably, I don't see my friends as much because I've made other friends. I've kind of belonged to a new community, which is very time consuming, but I'm okay with that. And things like labels and and other things like using the word masculine, like to me that those things irk me kind of.
Yeah.
Which may not make me the most fun person to be around, but at least I kind of have like this internal thought of like, masculinity is subjective. Even being a twink is subjective. I'm in a gay Facebook group and someone's like, how old's too old to be considered a twink? That was a question. Someone's like 26.
Thanks. Decree
they're
of
trying to like
twinkness.
define.
Exactly. Like here's someone on Facebook defining a label. Like what? Why is 26? Why not? Like, who cares?
What about 26.5?
So it's kind of equivalent to people, group in like jocks or like fuck boys or like
Totally,
right.
Yeah.
But I think more people have fun with it as well because there is also a humor aspect of it. Like straight people love it. Like, what am I? Like, what do I fall under? Like, where am I? And that's just kind of like, very Hollywood-esque. There's also a big, the drag community loves using terms like this because of that. It's all very much satire.
Yeah.
And like making fun of what you are.
Well, that's honestly, that's why. Okay. Well, first of all, the thing is my only concern when you hear, say like a friend has come out of the closet and something is the majority of the way I interact with friends is like banter. Making fun of like all that stuff. And then when somebody usually comes out with something like addiction or something a little bit deeper and more serious, my always biggest concern is like, is now that things are a little more serious, like what does that relationship change a little bit? Like you said, a little bit more sensitive to stuff because it's all more real. Your real self is out there. You're more vulnerable. And I'm always worried that I'm now going to hang out with them, make you feel uncomfortable and stuff like that. But I know you're going to say it's not the case.
Well,
but
no,
like that's,
I mean, it could be the case.
Right.
I'm not going to say that because there are people out there who would turn around and be like, that's not okay and leave the room. And to me, ignorance is bliss. If people don't know, then like educate them. And that's within the community and outside the community. And I'll give you one example and then we'll go back to that because I want to address that whole like, joking thing. Like within the community, someone, is asking me whether or not I am, disease free or HIV negative. And they said something like, are you clean? And to me, that's one of those things that's just like, so if I have HIV, are you considering me dirty? Like, you know what I mean? Like those things. But the guy said to me, like, I never thought of it like that. I've never looked at it from that. He was ignorant. And I said, I'm not angry at you. Like, I am HIV negative. I don't have any disease. But just because I have something doesn't mean I'm dirty. And so education, teaching people, being like, this is okay to say, this is not okay to say, is bliss. And appreciating someone's ignorance, like, it is great. Just because you're ignorant doesn't mean you're a bad person.
Yeah.
I think about that like as Michael Scott. I don't know if you watch The Office, but Michael Scott is the most ignorant human being on earth. He means absolutely no harm whatsoever. He just doesn't know.
Right.
Very much like Cardi B. She said something about the trans community. She was ignorant. She didn't know better and she apologized. If you teach me the right terms, I'll use them.
Yeah.
But people aren't educated. So that's clutch.
Especially when people react to people like Cardi B right away and go "fuck you" and
no, I think those people need to.
That is a bit of a toxic reaction to almost any scenario.
Totally, everyone's so quick to judge
politics, like sexuality,
because they can
groups. Well, get it. That's why you probably hate labels.
But
because the second you label something, you get defensive, you get definitive about it.
To me, it's just ask. If you don't know, ask, and if someone doesn't know, correct them. And like that's why like. It's like the I word. People are too afraid to admit that they're ignorant. Like, I'm ignorant about on a lot of topics. There's no doubt about it. I don't know. Why would I fake it? And if I say something inappropriate, I would hope that person would know that it comes from a good place. Correct me. But I want to circle back to like the joking and the sitting down with your gay bud, like, you know, like, hey, like what's cool, what's not cool. I always said to my friends, if you ever treat me differently, that's when things will become
Brilliant.
weird.
Yeah,
like,
that's a great
like,
comment.
I want you to treat me the exact same. If you were to use words like, and then listen, and you will disagree with me, if you were to use like fag or cocksucker or things like that, if you didn't call me those things, I would be upset. Because that means you're watching yourself. And I love you for who you are. And you're my friend because that's why you're my friend. Be yourself. Now, if something does offend me, I will say something. In more recent years, I found that like you said, you're uneducated or you pissed me off at a comment that you said.
Or maybe they're just not close enough to you to make that type of thing.
But it's just know your audience at the same time.
Exactly.
And
I
that's fun.
like your take on it.
Like
there.
That's just it. Like and I said that always. And please, I get like all the time I get ragged on for being like, oh, you're like, how many dicks did you suck today? Like you're a fucking fag. Like,
but the thing is, if you were out there banging girls on the reg, I'd be like, oh my God, like, don't touch this guy. Like his fingers stink. Like, you know what I mean?
It's
Like,
the same
100%.
way, right?
Like, there's no doubt about that. And I think that's like my inner kind of, and to really circle back, my fraternity culture, because we always made fun of each other. And if you weren't getting made fun of, it means that like you weren't loved.
Yeah.
Like that was just
That's
it.
true.
Like if that's how I feel. Like if someone's not talking about you, it means they don't care. If they're making fun of you and they're in a good way, that's a good way.
Well, it's refreshing to hear you say it because a lot of times, obviously, I have that mentality because I've never been afflicted or like not afflicted, but I've never been as a white straight guy from a decent family. I've never dealt with a thing, right? So when I go and I say, hey, everyone should just like rag on each other, like that's how I know I like people, I feel like immediately like keep that opinion to yourself.
But it's funny because I use that mentality to a lot of new friends and they're not too cool about it. Like they don't know because, you know, that's just it. And it's a weird sort of balance that I have to make personally. Have you been doing this for an hour and a half? Sorry.
No.
Okay.
One is 0.
I'm like, I haven't checked like the time. And I was like, geez.
It's been 35 minutes or so, yeah.
So on the opposite end of the spectrum, though, you mentioned homophobia, and I mean, like all those terms you mentioned as well, obviously have like a negative, can be used negatively. Have you experienced any like bad sort of homophobia within the city or any
direct,
like,
indirect?
direct?
No, of course. I mean, listen, there was one. I was at work one time, and this may have been a bit of an ignorant comment, but I was personally offended. And I'll tell you quickly the scenarios. And many people were like, "Why would you be offended about that?" And it doesn't matter whether or not you may be offended. I was offended.
Yeah.
And so I was, and that's what people have to sometimes understand. That just because you may not find it offensive, someone else may, and just address it.
Yeah.
It's all that needs to be done. So I was going to the Ariana Grande concert as a good gay civilian.
Love her.
and I was really excited. I was at work, and so this person from a different office, like a different branch, had come in, and I was talking about it to a coworker, and he's like, "Oh, like where are you going?" And I said, "I'm going to the Ariana Grande concert." He goes, "Oh, with the 12-year-olds and all the pedophiles." And I was kind of taken back because I was like, "Well, I'm not 12 years old. So by definition, you just called me a pedophile." And to really go back into history, you know, pedophilia and homo and being gay essentially were kind of like on the same playing field. It's something that needed to be cured. You have a mental illness.
Yeah.
And to me, that's just like a very old school train of thought. And I was super offended about it. And I was like, that's an extremely inappropriate comment. And I was really upset.
It's more just didn't make sense. And it's
I put him in his place because he once said, so his rebuttal was like, "Oh, I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean it like that." Like, okay, cool. You just said something homophobic to me. So whether or not you meant it, like, this is how I'm going to treat it. I once went to a Britney Spears concert with my boys and I'm like, "Well, are you trying to tell us that you're also gay?" And he got really offended at that. I never reported it really to HR. It really did kind of take a toll. My whole office kind of treated me a bit differently after that. Someone came up to me and was like, "I once went to a George Michael concert." And I was just like, I felt like,
it's like when someone says, "I have black friends," You know what I mean? It's like
You don't want to hear that.
Yeah,
it's
it's
like,
like-
it felt like, and once again, I'm obsessed with The Office. I felt like Oscar in the opposite episode where like he comes out and like all of a sudden everyone's kind of like giving him extra like softness.
Yeah,
like,
I know the
don't
exact
treat me-
episode you're talking about.
Don't treat me differently. Just
Yeah.
acknowledge that it was wrong. And I don't give a fuck that you went to a George Michael concert. I don't like George Michael. Like fuck you. Like,
but I like your approach to it. You just like you call him out, tell him why it's offensive to you, and now you probably don't give a fuck about kind of what happened now, and it's
No.
like everything's just kind of
You want everything kind of go back to normal.
go back, right? Yeah.
It's a tough thing for anyone to do. If you get offended, it's very rare, especially as Canadians, that we actually call people out. Usually we internalize this.
Well, the problem is like the thing is I weirdly this might sound awful, but I weirdly identify with the guy who made that comment if he's a good person. If he's actually homophobic, then I don't identify. But like if I was hanging next to you and we were good buds like we were, I would go, you're like, oh, I'm going to Ariana Grande concert. And I'd be like, of course you are. Or something like jokes like that. And then I'd also, knowing in my heart that I love Ariana Grande, I would go to that concert in a second. It's just like funny.
No doubt about that.
But
And I think maybe even looking back, like maybe I was super sensitive about
Not
it.
saying that.
But
Not saying that.
I agree. Like when you debunk this, it's kind of like, I know you, Trav, though.
Yeah,
Like, you're a
that's-
friend of mine. This is a coworker of mine. Like I said before, know your audience. And if you don't know your audience, always play it safe. Because then at the end of the day, which was even funny enough, which I learned the hard way, I left that job. Like I'm no longer working there. I went to go for an interview with actually one of their competitors. And I brought this up because I said, I am looking for more of a progressive environment. I don't want this old school. This is what happened. And I was offended about this. If this is something that you see being a problem, I don't want to work here. So flat out. And she said to me, I don't find that offensive. I have a gay sister. I don't find that offensive. And I was in shock, floored. That's like, I have a black friend.
Yeah,
I can say a
So
racist
I'm
joke.
not
Yeah.
offended because of my black friend.
So you
I know.
shouldn't be.
So,
Yeah.
and like, I was like, you're a woman. Like, sorry, I don't mean like, like if you said, like, if I said something misogynistic and there was like, hey, like I have a mom and a sister, I don't find that at all. Like no misogyny here. Like
Yeah.
that's like the same sort of thing I can feel.
Well,
So-
the only thing that makes it not, it's like, it's only because of the actual societal differences from history.
Mhm.
Because truly, if we were societally equal and society leveled the playing field for all minorities, whatever, it would be truly okay to make an offensive joke. It's you know what I'm saying, but it's not quite there. It's never, and there the history exists.
100%. And there's the right people to do it as well. Because we look at comedians, we look at people like Dave Chappelle or really risky comedians,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they always love pushing the barriers. Hey, that's the right time and the right moment to do it because we know it's in good humor. This comment about like you're going with the 14-year-olds and the pedophiles, there was no humor attached to it. It wasn't like we were kidding around. We weren't having a beer, smoking a joint. Like, no, we're in suited up and I'm in my cubicle and like you come into a conversation and this is your addition to it. So for things like
Yeah.
that, I had like, to me, I felt personally not like wasn't personally attacked, but I felt like the comment was a bit far-fetched.
I feel like even just kind of in the workplace in general, if he was to make that comment these days,
Yeah.
regardless of whether you're gay or not, it just wouldn't go over well.
I think you might have also just picked up on the fact that you didn't have that relationship.
Absolutely
That
not.
was more it. Because like it'd be weird if your boss said even something offside to a woman or to some guy. Like different things piss us off. Like if somebody's like, oh, I come into work in the morning, my eyes are red, and he just like assumes I'm a stoner or something. It'd be like the same. I'm like, man, we don't have that relationship. Don't call me a stoner in the office. And if somebody else was like, I wouldn't be offended. My brother's a stoner. I'd also be like, that doesn't make any sense. So like
Yeah.
that logic doesn't apply to
Absolutely not.
So that's why I understand, and but when I said I identify with that guy, it's because I also know that I would say something dumb, and if I didn't know there was someone in the room that could take it poorly, and he didn't say something, I would never know, and that's why I identify a little bit with him in like the ignorant sense, because that's my humor.
Now, the funny part about this guy too, and I know this is so irrelevant, is he like even looks more gay than I do. And I know that's even awful for me to say. Like this guy carries himself in a very effeminate manner. And I just said like I hate using feminine and masculine, but like even then, like I was like when I first saw this guy, my gaydar went off, which means it's horrible because he has like 2 kids and a wife. He later then broke his arm a couple weeks ago. So like karma's a fucking bitch sometimes. Bending over a glass table. Anyway.
You think?
We'll leave that there.
I was like,
You have to have a lot of weight on a glass table to
really like break through it. But anyway, back to your point. You know, I've dealt with homophobia for sure. I've kind of dealt with it, you know, on the street sometimes, but you deal with it. People just look stupid today. It's 2020. Like
you do look fucking.
It's
literally
true.
Look so dumb,
So uneducated, ignorant. Like,
But imagine living not in Toronto though. Imagine not being in like Toronto or like Vancouver, California, like one of these like.
but that's it. We really do surround ourselves with like-minded people, very liberal people. We do live in a big city. Yes, there's obviously going to be the anomaly, but we learn to accept everyone because we have to live in their neighborhoods with them. When you go, you know, an hour north of, you know, Toronto or 2 hours, you're in counties that like don't know. They don't know.
They just don't know.
They don't know. They don't care. And that's why, you know, and I would say this even on the record, like small town gays, city gays, two very different people. Like, you know, like it's a very kind of different aspect. You know, obviously, like, of course, there are the outliers, but you can tell right away. I can tell right away if someone's from the city when I can tell whether or not they're from like a small town because
are they like more closeted if they're from a small town?
No, it's the opposite. They're definitely like
they came out of a
they
small
came
town and
out
this
of
is
it.
like some sort of paradise of equality.
Yeah, it's a utopia where they can just
they just
literally
started floating once they got to like Church Street, just spinning.
it's true though, and all of a sudden you like you made the escape and like you're like screw all those guys from behind and like all the power, but like it's really you can really tell where it's like someone like myself, it's like you just go on living life, like that's it. Like there's nothing special about you because you live in a city with 6 million or how many 6 million other people
with an entire district devoted to the culture, basically.
But like it's just like one of those things. Like imagine growing up in a city with a town with 5,000 people and you're the like one of like 12.
And
like,
you all know each other for sure too.
And everyone exactly. Like to me, then like yes, and that's why it's just really much to do with their upbringing. And I'm not bashing them. They're I know, but it's just a funny kind of like you said when you go out
on both sides. My last point about it and about ignorance and acceptance is, I mean, even for ignorant people, this is what I always say. It's like I'm ignorant. I say stupid stuff a lot. I know my heart's in the right place, so that's why I feel like it's okay. But I'm sure I've offended people. And can think of a few examples. But with ignorance, especially the people that are homophobic or are openly from a small town, are like, I don't like gays. Like, that's not right. You can always identify with some element of them that brought them there the same way you got to wherever you're at. Like, they were raised probably in a homophobic environment, maybe religious, not tolerant. It's like, how do you expect any human, because we're all human, to come out of these environments? They would be an outlier if they came out tolerant. Do you know what I mean?
But
so it's
very accurate.
It's like it's almost like you can't hate the bad person. You can hate what they're doing. You can't hate the person. The same way you can't hate the gay person even if you disagree with what they're doing. Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
But like it's my opinions, which I feel like in today's day and age, I don't know. I've never really figured out if I have the right to have opinions on this stuff, but it's nice to hear when someone at least agrees with you.
Like everyone has a right to their opinion. There's no doubt about
publicly,
it. Right? But I'm saying right or wrong, and like living in today's world, like we know everyone loves sharing their opinion, whether or not it should be shared or not. But I think that really just goes back to like educating people that just because you like to sleep with a dude does not mean you're any different than you. Like, and that's like I was thinking about this on the way here. Like, why can't we just? Because I was thinking about the debate last night, and I was like, why can't we just like live and let live? And like, who cares? If you want to be religious and you want to be conservative, go ahead. And it's funny because no gay person would ever tell you otherwise. Like no one, no lesbian, no gay, no trans, nothing. They'll always look at you and be like, just live your life and let me live mine. And at the end of the day, we'll all be happy. And yes, if you kind of cross the barrier, like, or that line of saying something offensive, hopefully you'll learn from it, not in a bad way.
Yeah. And I mean, anyway, we really covered a good portion of it, and we appreciate you divulging all that. And like,
yeah,
totally.
I'm sorry it got a little serious at the end there.
It didn't, because it's also kind of weird for us to be like, oh, like our one gay friend, like let's get his opinion on everything So, and we appreciate you taking that in stride and being like, we get it. You
But-
guys just had questions. You know what I
But
mean?
we are just like genuinely interested also.
Yeah,
Kind of.
it's
Well, yeah,
is the nature,
I'm
right?
happy about that, and
Yeah.
as many people should be. And I'm nervous because I don't think I consider myself like a very, very moderate kind of gay person. I'm not coming in here. I'm not, in drag or flaring my arms or things like that, which is also can be offensive to some person. But like, hey, like, it's just we're just people, like that's just it. And at the end of the day, like I love my experience. I love the time that I had in my fraternity. Just like even go back there. Like I had the best time with my boys. They're good people. I consider them my boys still. I could call them up anytime. And I know it's reciprocated, and that's really nice.
Well, all I know is just from personal experience, knowing your friends, nothing but positivity to say about the transition and everything, which is great to hear. Like you really lucked out with a group of good lads.
100%. And that was like very worrisome, is that there would be a chance that I may lose some friends out of this. And that's what every gay person goes. I may lose a family member. I may lose friends over this. I never did.
That's awesome.
Like not one. And I consider myself extremely fortunate.
Mm-hmm.
No, sorry, I was just getting a phone call. I wasn't
That's
checking
fine.
the time.
No, I
Wasn't
mean, okay. By all means.
Last thing on this topic,
If you
because I
can't
want to
notice,
talk about
I
your.
can talk for a very long time.
Dude, we
Like,
can-
literally.
I could talk to a wall and have a good conversation.
It's true.
I could leave for half an hour.
In
and come
fact,
back
you do
and-
sometimes.
and
Sometimes I,
yeah.
talk to Rob, and I know he's not listening, but I still talk because it's nice to have a sounding board.
I just like listen and talk to myself. Like literally, like I argue with myself all the
The
time.
last thing I wanted a joke's opinion on, because I
Mhm.
just saw this other day and it blew my mind, is they had a straight pride parade
Oh God.
in Boston. I'm not kidding.
So like they did it in Toronto. They tried to do it in Toronto. I don't know
Really?
if you're aware of this. Yeah, totally. So
Yeah.
these parades are just like in my opinion, like incels who are scared of their own sexuality. Like that's just it. So we had this in Toronto. They tried to do it.
Mhm.
They tried to walk up Church Street and literally promote not being gay and Christian values and all these things. They couldn't make it past, for those who are familiar, they couldn't make it past King Street
I didn't hear about this.
on Church.
I didn't know about this either.
So they were stopped. There were people just not letting them go forward. Like all these gay people, they came down. I refrained because I literally felt like I would be angry and I would do something that I probably would regret, like take that crowbar out of my back car and like just like go to town.
yeah.
Because like to me that infuriates me. But when you are protesting against somebody, you really have to go back to like, what are you doing? Like even your religion tells you like love everyone. Yes, maybe sleeping with a man may be an abomination, but great. Just because someone has a different view. Now, they don't get much traction. There may be 4
No.
or 5 people in the parade like, hey, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, plus with like, would you really want to attach your name or your face, to all this
Also-
media coverage? It's literally like the equivalent would be doing like a white power, like
100%.
Like
walk,
a White Lives Matter parade or
like
something
the KKK,
ridiculous.
literally.
Totally. And they were like priests on the other side being like, what are you doing?
I didn't even realize there was such a hate element to it. I just saw the article and I saw the people walking down in this Boston parade, and it was hilarious. I didn't realize that they were like being like, don't be gay. I thought they were just like, we fuck women and this is
No,
fun.
no.
Because the gay pride parade is just like more like dancing and like this is dope.
There's
now.
a
Yeah.
big sexual aspect to that. There's no doubt about that. But unfortunately, it wasn't that. But if straight people wanted to celebrate themselves having sex with the opposite sex,
That'd
like,
be a
hey,
different
like,
story. Yeah.
But that's just university, man.
Yeah.
You want to go to college, dude?
Yeah.
Like you want to celebrate that, by all means.
that was the last thing. Let's briefly touch on, because most times people come on here and we just are like, oh, like were you like an athlete in high school? What'd you want to do with your life?
Mhm.
Like stuff like that. And I know we push this kind of back, but did your sexuality distract you from thoughts like that? Like or was it just like, okay, that's me, but also what the fuck am I going to do in university? What the fuck am I going to do for a
Totally.
job?
So to address that, like at no point did I think I wasn't able to do what I do because I'm gay.
Okay,
Like,
cool.
absolutely not.
That's great.
However, being gay distracted me throughout university because I was figuring myself out. Like I said, Weldon, Taylor,
Yeah.
By
my
figuring
building,
yourself out.
res rooms that weren't even
Yeah.
my res rooms. Like, why am I
Got you.
here? So like things like that, yes, those distracted me. And maybe other gay people go through that at a different point in my life. I happen to go through it in a very integral point of someone's life of being like, this is a time to like focus and be like, what are you going to do with your life? And if you were to take what I was doing with my life, I'd probably be a prostitute at this point.
I mean, yeah, there's some pun in there like fucking it all away or something like that. I don't know, but
I literally did.
Fucking it up.
But
fucked
you
up.
you were in sciences, weren't you?
Yeah, so I really did
Right.
want to be a doctor. Like,
Yeah.
there's no doubt about that. And I'm not. I'm not that. I was working, fell into the recruiting world very recently. I'm in between jobs as a good way of saying that I don't have a job right now.
you worked with your dad a bit too at
and demolition, which
Yeah.
is even like, we didn't even touch upon that, which is even funny because when you're in the construction demolition world, like there are no gay people right now. Like
Oh, yeah.
absolutely not.
like none. And here I am, like
They're all like
working,
big, burly,
Yeah,
rugged men.
They weirdly have like New York or Boston
But I'm
accents,
saying,
even though they're from Toronto.
I'm working with my gay father and his gay son running a demolition company in Toronto.
Mhm.
It's kind of comical. It really is because like we do deal with you dealt with homophobia all the time. But the one thing I always liked about his workers was they were always very supportive. Like they really were. And these are like blue collar laborers. Like they're part of a union even, but they
you
were
would
our
expect
employees.
the labels would expect them to be a certain way.
And not saying that there weren't the outlier, the anomaly, but I remember I was working on a job site that was at Church in Carleton, funny enough, like right in the, like at the start of it. And there would be people who would walk by that I was even like, what the fuck are they wearing? Like, why? What gender are you?
And they're like catcalling them all
but,
the
like-
same. They're like just construction worker style.
And our workers didn't bat an eye. Like they really didn't. Maybe they knew I was around, but they know that their boss is gay. Like you
Yeah.
can't fuck around with that shit or else you'll get fired. Whereas like subcontractors would come and they would be the ones like putting them down.
Yeah,
Or being
yeah,
like gross or things like that. And I would sit there with my eyes being like, you know what? I respect our workers, but this is something that you deal with like all the time. Like I remember hearing like Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, like through a job site walkthrough. And this is someone who's like trying to bid on a job. And I literally was so close to being like, yeah, that's what your son said when his dick was in my mouth. But I didn't. I looked at my dad and my dad looked at me and gave me very stern eyes and was like, this is not a political moment. This is a business moment. And that's a hard thing
that
to
would have
do.
hit that guy hard too, for sure.
Well, I mean, like that's just it. But also, like we are very open about it. My dad usually put a float in the Pride Parade, like for his hockey league with big Teperman banners on the side. Like it's not like we're hiding anything.
But you just maybe just weren't into the business of it, like
Yeah, no, it just working with your father is not all glorified as it seems to be, and it just wasn't working for me. I wanted to do something on my own, and so I did.
That's
so
cool.
So you moved on from that, and then where did that lead you?
So I worked at Woody's for a little bit, gay bar on Church Street. Ton of fun too.
Tell me everything.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, in a short, what a learning experience that was for like a little Jewish boy from Toronto to work as a bar back, not even a bartender at Woody's. I learned
great name too. Is that like the Hooters like parallel?
I mean, this isn't a
Woody's?
I mean, their logo is like a rhino.
gotta
for
wear
some
really
reason.
tight
I don't know, it's
shorts.
like, I mean,
Yeah.
thank God there was no uniform other than the t-shirt. And I wasn't a bartender, so like even those guys would take off their t-shirts all the time too, because that's just a money-making thing right there.
Absolutely.
But I learned a lot about my community. And I think that was a pivotal moment of who I am today because I learned a lot about drag culture. I learned a lot about how people use these establishments as havens. They come every single day because they have nowhere else to go. On holidays, like it's open 24/7, Christmas Eve, New Year's, people are in the bar. This is like where they are, as Woody's is an establishment in Toronto.
Yeah.
Been open for a very long time. And to be a part of that, even though it was just for 6 months, I felt very honored and very like eye-opening. I did definitely had my fair of fun there, like no doubt about it. Like, hey, I still do to this day. Sexually, not sexually, but it was a great time. Loved it. Loved all the crew there. Still speak to a bunch of people. When I go there, I feel like I'm part of the family. And it was a great experience. So I worked at Woody's for a little bit. Even like met one of my exes there, which is a great opportunity as well to meet people and make friends. And then I started working recruiting.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I am today. I just am no longer working as a recruiter at this moment. Interviewing, hopefully.
Are you but you want to stay in recruitment? You like recruitment?
I don't know yet. But like you said, like everyone
Yeah.
comes here. I'm very lost at this moment. I just had a phone call with someone. She's like, why did you apply for a PR job? Like, because I don't know what I want to do. And we had this talk, and this woman must be in her late 30s. She has 2 kids. We spoke. This is like a pre-interview for 50 minutes, just about how she wanted to be a doctor too. And she felt a little lost. And she was trying all these things, and they weren't working, like a Jew from Thornhill. And hey, like it gives you comfort to know that when you're 26 and you have no idea what you're doing, hey, like yeah.
If there's one conclusion that we've come to, like over these past like 85 episodes or however many we've done, it's, you know, there's no better way to find out than just doing things.
But I'm saying trial and error. 100%.
Trial and error.
Like there's no doubt about that. And that's what I think people in our generation understand. Maybe our parents' generation don't understand. Because our parents' generation, if they were unhappy, they'd stick with it. Too bad.
Yeah. Too bad. So sad. Make your money. Put bread on the table.
But that's it. And we aren't like that. If we're unhappy, we will quit. We will find a new job. Now, there are people like, you know, I have great friends who I'm very proud of who have stuck with one thing. They're doing extremely well. I like all the power. Good for them.
Because you can also do something you dislike if you see it being able to afford you things that you do like.
But are they really happy though? But like, I don't know.
I mean, afford, not even in the money sense. Like if you're like, you know what, I don't like this job, but I know if I get to this point in it, I'm going to have this much time. I'm going to be able to do skiing and snowboarding, what
100%.
I want to do. And like, there's different paths to happiness.
There, no doubt about it. And as someone once said to me, as you know, I have a niece, she just started walking and she was a little bit late. And someone's like, it's just a good analogy for life. Like everyone walks at a different age. No one's there at the same time. We're not all getting up on twos at like 1 year old and like all both being just running. Like that's not a thing. And if it takes you a little bit longer, it takes you a little bit longer. And the best advice I could give to someone like my age, or even when I was 23 or 24, be friends with older people. Have those older people in your life who are close to 30, who are now 30. You'll realize that they also don't have their shit together too sometimes. Like, yes. And that just makes it easier.
You can talk to 45-year-olds and they'll still tell you, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what I want.
I may have 2 kids, but don't know what I'm doing.
Still figuring it out as we go.
My brother-in-law, he's a bit older. He's 42, or 41, maybe 42. He's a perfect example of a guy who just lived, traveled, saw the world, moved from Australia to Canada, got different jobs for good periods of time, saw them through, like didn't flip around, met my sister a little bit later, didn't worry, all is hitting all the marks his other friends would hit at a different point in time. And it's all kind of working. And I look at him all the time and he's still just like, yeah, mate, kind of want to start up a chip truck, maybe a restaurant.
But
I fucking love
phenomenal.
that. Yeah.
And like I said, that is like, I cannot stress how much that has put me at ease. It makes me sleep at night. So one last story, like I don't know, it can be many stories, but I came out at 23. I had become friends with someone really good. His name's Ben, like one of my best friends. He's almost 10 years older than me, maybe 6 years older than me. And I was like, this is great. I'm going to meet people. This is who my friends are going to be. He's like, come over to my place. I make dinner every Sunday night for my friends. I'm like, great. I'm going to have a crew. And I remember I walked in and Ben, his boyfriend, and myself were the only gay people at the table. They were all straight women who I became very good friends with, though. And they're older. They're not, I mean, they're just getting to 30 and like they still, they aren't 100% wildly successful, but they're happy. They're figuring that out. And that right there made me like living so much easier, honestly. Like,
is this how you got invited to those events that you went to last?
What'd you call that one event you really
the
liked?
Businesswomen Special, BWS. So
Businesswomen Special.
Yeah, I mean, sort of, totally. Because Ben had been going he's like, wow, I went to that party like 10 years ago. I'm like, yeah, they just celebrated 10 years like 2 weeks ago, which is great. And the same people are putting it on. Which is also another point because, people put on these parties because things like the Village are becoming too gentrified. People are going there for their bachelorette parties, which people have not yet caught on that, like, we get that you're there for your bachelorette party, but like, we're not your source of entertainment. Just
like it's a
gay.
fucking zoo. Like
exactly.
Yeah.
Like you have to respect your place 100%. And some people do, and they go and they have fun because it's a ton of fun. And it's like a good dance
and a safe
bar.
space for a lot of girls, right? If they don't want to get hit on by guys.
Well, yes and no. There are still a lot of straight guys at these bars.
And I guess bisexual too, right?
That was a question
100%.
also I had. Is there straight guys working at Woody's?
Yeah, 100%.
Also, yeah.
So they're bartenders or barbacks or straight guys working at all these bars. If you were smart, like that's a great place to work.
But I would also be rattled a little bit if I was a patron. It's like it'd be like going to Hooters and like you want something out of like an establishment and like they're like they just have like a chest. I don't know.
but I mean, yes, but it's a really smart business aspect. Like to me, like when I was like, oh, that person's straight, and they're working the bar topless, like showing off their body, like. Hey,
I mean,
it's good money.
I'd 100% be that bartender, but I'd also 100% be on the other side as a gay man rattled at him.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when you, it's an easy sort of acceptance of just like, oh, and then some people are like, some people love hooking up with straight dudes. Like it's a challenge for some gay guys. They're like, oh, I want to hook up with that guy. He's straight. I'm like, why even bother? The sex is gonna be shit.
I don't think they find straight men. I think they just find closeted bisexuals.
Well, that's just it. Or like people who want to like, who are like curious or like very good at convincing. I'm like, that's way too much work for me for a shitty blowjob. Like I'm just gonna go hook up with a gay guy.
True. And it's also just the same as like a fantasy of like a guy hooking up with a very prude or like kind of proper girl.
100%. Or even how about hooking up with like a lesbian? Like you did something, you were able to convert
It's
someone
like
over
spoiler
there.
alert, you just hooked up with a bisexual woman.
Yeah,
It's like
it's not that big of a deal.
Relative to the rest of the world, I mean, like, I don't know what other sort of cities or other gay communities you've experienced. How progressive would you say Toronto's gay community and kind of what they
in your
have top?
experience.
Of course. Definitely like top notch acceptable. Like I do feel so comfortable if I was holding a hand with another guy or kissing him in public. Like there is absolutely no fear in my life. Maybe I should. Maybe I'm just one of those like very strong kind of personalities, but absolutely not. Whereas I was in Rome and I actually went on a date in Rome. I don't know why I went on a date in Rome, but I met a guy.
Because why not? When in Rome.
Exactly. And I remember like I went to go kind of hold his hand as we were walking back to his place, and he's like, he was from France, and he's like, you can't do that here. Like you can't, like that's like not, it's not accepted. Like there's no gay village in Rome. There isn't any really, even in a place like Berlin. Now Berlin's very acceptable.
Berlin.
You know, it's like it's a ton of fun. Like I went to Berghain and like the first second I walk in, there's another dude getting a blowjob from another guy, and I'm like, oh okay. So like it's very, some cities I find are very amalgamated. Like they're just like they accepted it.
Yeah.
Others are very segregated.
How hard was it to get into Berghain?
It was so easy for me. So I
Yeah.
went in on a Sunday, which someone recommend. Like go in on a Sunday. You have nothing to do on Monday. Go alone, which I did. I was traveling alone. Mr. Saturday made me a t-shirt.
Very nice.
I had asked him, I was like, can you make me a cool t-shirt to wear to Berghain? And it had like little holes in it. It was like bleached at this time, like when he was still doing that shit. And it was a ton of fun. Like it was a good time. But there's
Sick.
also a little secret bar underneath called Laboratory.
Oh, I think I've heard of this.
This is a full-on gay sex club. Super fun too. I just admitted to going to that.
It's like it's so jealous. It's like imagine someone's like underneath Berghain. There's like just girls, fucking dudes, anyone in there, and we could just go. And just because we're
It's called the red light district.
No, but then you still have to pay. It's like
this
there's
is
not
like
the
a
same.
no.
Yeah, there's not. Yeah,
I made a joke on the last on like the last podcast or maybe 2 ago where I was like, gay grinder, unreal. It's like, hey, again, no STDs. Where do you live? What do you like? When can we meet up?
100%.
Hinge, hey, no answer. 10 of those. What's up? Like funny joke. No answers. 10 of those. A lot of messages. Maybe get a date. Are we boyfriend and girlfriend? Like none of like.
So like I said, like, there's definitely there is that standard. There is still like, I don't want you to be confused. There is still that standard for gay people. Like, you know, there are still people who are like won't respond on apps. Not everyone's as horny as I am, but there are a lot of people are, because
like percentage wise.
we're all guys.
Yeah.
Guys just want to fuck, and we don't really care about.
And there's
feelings.
girls like that too. It's just percentage wise.
Oh,
just
percentage wise,
100%.
it's like guys are ready to fuck at all times of the day.
Like I was, I ordered Uber Eats the other day, and he messaged me on Grindr, the delivery driver, being like, "I'm about to drop off your food."
Fuck right
Comes
off.
inside, and I offered him a water bottle.
They're living our fantasies.
It was raining out, and ... Like push comes to shove, there he is in my bed.
Imagine ordering Uber Eats, Kev,
and a hot girl.
Hot girl
Kev's
just
dying right now.
messages you and says, "Hey, I liked your picture. What are you doing? Let's eat this food together and maybe a little bit something
Trav,
else."
I didn't share my food with him. He just watched me eat. Like, fuck that. I'm not sharing my sushi with you. I just spent $30 on sushi. You're gonna watch me eat it, and then we'll go to my room.
Is Grindr still the go-to app for?
Yeah, it really is. Like, they definitely have the monopoly. There are so many others. I use Tinder as well, and a lot of other ones.
What's that, Kev?
Did you leave a tip?
Oh,
you know what?
Just the tip.
Because you actually add the tip before. I did, but I reduced it down to 10%. But he got what he wanted at the end of the day. He was pretty happy. I dried his clothing. It was that rainy day last Saturday when it was past Saturday. It was really rainy. He looked all wet. I was like, why don't you take your pants off and put them in my dryer? And he did.
I mean, there's a lighter side and a darker side to everything, and I love the lighter side of like the sexual culture. It's definitely one of the better parts.
I mean, it's just like you get like real porno scenes. You know, for example, like my dryer broke one time. The guy who I'd rented a parking spot from in my building was pretty cute, so I go down to his place. Hey, can I, use your dryer? He's like, yeah, no problem. So I go and I put my clothing in his dryer, and he's in a towel. I'm like, hey, we're in his bed. Like, it's just like, it's so easy. Like, it's like,
fuck.
Like, here I am literally on my knees already putting the laundry into the thing, and like, oh,
I
we're
go
already
into a
halfway
nightclub
there.
and I'm scared to talk to girls.
No.
That's my life.
But Trav, like, I'm also scared to talk to guys, because when you actually want to like talk to them to actually get maybe something serious out of it, there's still that there. Like,
there's a double end. If I want a relationship, it's probably a lot easier to. Yeah.
If I wanted to go get some action, I'll go to a place with a dark room in it, which exists in Toronto, and just sit there until my dick gets sucked. Like, I don't see what the person looks like. Who cares?
Wait, this place exists in Toronto?
100%.
What? Look, can you explain?
Yeah,
a little bit
no.
further?
So like I said, this kind of goes back to the cruising days, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like there are places, there are bars in Toronto, for example, like the Eagle is one of them. Now, if you walk into the Eagle, and I realized as Han's experience, like I was with a girl at the point, she was my friend's cousin. The bouncer stopped her and was like, "There's gay porn on the TV. You're okay with that?" And she's like, "Yeah, what do I care?" And it's a good party. It's like the closest thing I'd say that we have to like a European bar, like good deep house music, like dancing. Like, it doesn't matter. They're probably mostly gay there. And then upstairs, there's this little dark area, which is like a free for all. You can do whatever you want in. I think that's legal to say. It's like a legal operation.
Yeah.
I mean, we have bathhouses as well that are legal as well, that you just go pay for a locker and you can go fuck whatever you want.
I mean, is it against the law on private property to hook up with somebody else? No, I don't think it is.
I don't think it is. But to run an establishment that is a brothel, sort of, yes, because people are paying for. Here, you're not paying for the service.
Yeah, you're not paying.
You're not
That's
paying
the
for
thing.
the
This
service.
is just two consenting.
And that's why bathhouses are legal
patrons,
too, right?
yeah.
We just go, you pay for a locker or a key.
See, this is a whole world I have, and you probably too have no idea about that exists.
Well,
in
I mean,
Toronto.
only from like the brief glimpses I've heard from friends and for friends of friends.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
And again, that's true. You always forget there's two sides to every coin. The finding a relationship and stuff like that.
Oh man.
Like, especially if you imagine you just wanted to settle down and just like be just like relationship, condo, whatever. You'd have to work hard.
That's a tough find in the
That's a
gay
tough find,
community.
yeah.
It really is, especially with a lot of people being like, I want the best of both worlds and I want an open relationship. That's very common. I have many friends who are in open relationships who hook up with other guys but still have their boyfriend at home. And to me, I'm like, I can't even figure that out.
Yeah.
I'm like on the fence about that one. I'm like, I don't even know. Like, to me, if I'm in a relationship, I'm 100% monogamous. I want to be with that person. You know, if we're traveling and we meet a third person, hey, why not?
There's always that little bit of horn.
So like, to me, that is like the 101 most benefit. If I could say anything, I love being about gay. Oh my God, I hope no one in my family hears this. It's like, if I'm going on vacation with my boyfriend at the time and we're together, like, we're going to be on a dating app or we're going to go to a club and let's pick up somebody else because we all want the same thing and it's dick. Like, if you're with a woman and you're with your girlfriend, it's like, do you pick up a girl? Do you pick up a guy? You never know because you each want something different. We all want the same thing.
Yeah, it is crazy.
That to me is like the one benefit, and people who don't use that, like, don't do that, like, you're fucked. Like, don't even bother.
If you're gonna do anything, take advantage of the good things about your sexuality. Like,
100%.
The thing is, it'd be cool to be completely, if sexuality was a spectrum, to be completely 50-50 and be attracted to everything. And then when you want sex, to have access to communities that are sex driven, and when you want relationships, there's some people out there living it.
Like, people consider themselves like poly or asexual.
Mm-hmm.
Poly is more attracted to, I think, both. Like, but to me, I really do feel that you always are attracted to one more than the other, but you don't mind the other, or you just want somebody to be with, whether it's a girl or guy. You just like the company of somebody. Like, I don't listen, like, all the power. I respect them. I'm like I said, I consider myself gay. Man, it's so much fun.
Yeah,
like, it's
great.
Like, it's a ton of fun. Like, it can be, but like, like, I still get nervous if I'm at a bar and I see a cute guy. Like, I'm still gonna get nervous. Do I buy him a drink? Do I not buy him a drink? Do I like just give him the eyes and see if he's on an app later? Like I don't know.
There's still a little bit of a cat and mouse.
I mean, like, if we have another time for another story, this one's a funny one,
dude. We can go as long as
okay, great.
Keep going.
This one's a bit more sexual, and I'm happy to share it. So
And I'm happy to be here.
it was a kind of a crazy night. I was hooking up with someone. We made very clear terms. This is just hookup. This is just, he's actually supposed to come over later. Spoiler. We were just
To our
hooking
house?
up. Like, hey, like that's it. This is what we're doing. And then we wound up, we were hooking up and I said, come over. It was a Friday. I was meeting my friends. Once again, they were in from Rome. And I said, if you want to come to the bar with me, we were going to Woody's. By all means, let's go. We'll go for a drink. If you want to join me, and that's where I fucked up because I crossed that line there. So then we're at the bar. I introduced him to my friends. He's sitting there. One of his friends comes up to talk with us, but his friend's friend was looking super cute. And I was like, oh, you're interesting. So he goes to the bar to buy a drink. I'm like, BRB, I'm going to go to the bar to buy a drink. Go to a bar. He's buying a drink. I buy him a drink. We start talking. I'm like, hey, you want to go to the bathroom with me downstairs? And we go to the bathroom and we have sex in the bathroom. Great time. After just being with that other guy, who's just friends. This other guy finds out what I'm doing in the bathroom and he just goes AWOL and full psycho on me. And I'm bringing this up because it still is a very difficult predicament to be in. You want to be that promiscuous horn dog and then my inner frat bro is like, fuck everything that moves.
Yeah.
And you can sometimes, but his feelings were hurt and he was really upset. He wound up outside my place, he went full psycho. I blocked his number. Obviously, I unblocked it. Because
wait, the one that went psycho is coming back over tonight.
Yeah. Because his mentality, all he said, I was like, man, we set these parameters. And if you can't deal with the fact that I may be a bit more promiscuous than you, this is not going to work. He's like, well, I just wish you would have invited me.
He just felt left out.
A little left out.
Yeah.
So I guess at the moral of those stories, just I don't know your audience. I kind of felt bad at the end of the day, but I got what I wanted out of it, a lot more than I wanted out of it, and it was a good time.
And it all worked out in the end.
It's just a fun story to share. There's really no point to it other than the fact that I'm a bit of an asshole.
It's just it's more just it's just it's like a nice peer in to what a night out could look like. And also, if that's what night outs were like, I would go out a lot more.
But I mean, I've definitely heard these stories, crazy stories, when we were talking back in the day, of the shit that would go down in the house, stupid things like that. I would hear things like that, and I feel at the same time, I never got to experience any crazy sexual stories in university. It was all very hidden. It was all behind closed doors. Yes, I was hooking up in Taylor, but it was a handicapped bathroom downstairs.
Lots of space.
Yeah. Also,
handles.
There's also a cruising spot in Weldon. Fun facts.
You heard it here first, folks.
Wait, a cruising spot in Weldon?
In Weldon. I can't tell you where. You gotta find it out.
You don't have the fucking membership card, my dude.
It's there though, and some shit's gone down there. Pun intended. It's a bathroom. But it's where were we? I got lost. But anyway, it's a fun time. It's a fun time. I didn't really feel like I got to experience what my brothers did, my fraternity did, the craziness of that. And so if I, show that a little bit of that now, and you see that even my father, he didn't come out till much later. He acts like a kid. There's no doubt about that. It's
just making up for lost time.
You make up for lost time. You have fun.
But what I will tell you is it seems that, again, those stories you heard from university, that was, say there was 100 straight men in the university, maybe 5 to 10 of them were partaking in these stories. And the majority of straight men don't get access to these kind of times.
Opportunities. There's much more opportunities for these things, guaranteed. But like I said, we all want the same thing, and it is so much easier being with a guy. There's no doubt about that. You get to share clothes sometimes. You get to talk about shit that you wouldn't talk about with women, and you know what they want. Their feelings. You know what they're going through. It's so much easier.
I guess because you've experienced. I mean, did you have sort of intimate or girlfriend relationships growing up?
100%.
Yeah.
I was there were a few girlfriends in high school. There were many girls, not many. There were a few in university that I wound up actually getting quite close with, and it kind of sucked for them. There's no doubt about that, because I knew at the end of the day, this wasn't going to work out. But I was still a decent human being, and I was just myself. And I think that's So I don't feel bad for them. I mean, I look at their lives now. I think one of them may have done a little porn, or I don't know, cam go short cam.
Yeah, we might talk about that after. Let me know what's up.
But hey, it's it was definitely fun, but I didn't get to fully be out there in my university experience, and I'm not upset about that at all.
But
not remotely.
But you have those experiences to sort of reflect and know. I don't know, just to like further your point about talking about being in a relationship with a guy, it's just easier for you.
For me, well, yeah, of course.
Yeah,
And, like, it just to me is like, we are sensitive human beings. There's no doubt about that. I can be sensitive. I can be upset. I can, act very catty or sassy or things like that. But at the end of the day, like, I think being with a man is just for me easier because it's like, it's easier to figure out. And yes, I'm attracted to them, but that's just one of the benefits is we all kind of know what's going through our head.
Well, it's also easier on a non-sexual level for me to figure out friendships with guys, to just hit it off.
Yeah.
Like, it's a reason why you have a lot more guy friends.
100%. Like, that's why, like, both my relationships that I've been in, it was kind of like when they broke up, you're losing a best friend. And a lot of gay people I know are actually friends with their exes. They are. And like, if it ended amicably, like my ex today, my most recent, like, I speak very highly of him. He's a great guy. I grabbed coffee with him recently. We grabbed lunch even. I speak to him regularly. He wants to know how my niece is doing. I want to know how his parents are doing because he was my best friend. Like, while we were together, we spent a lot of time together. And yes, like, he had his boys. I had my boys. There's no doubt about that. But like, yes, and I'm no doubt you get that in a straight relationship, 100%.
Well, usually that's the thing. People end up marrying the first couple of girls that they find friendship with.
Because, like, it's beyond relationship.
Yeah.
And hopefully you can maintain that friendship as well as, like, a sexual aspect.
Yeah.
Because to me, that's everything. You need to be sexual with your partner. And if that dies out, then you know that, like, maybe it's not the right one for you. But if you can still be friends with them, it's perfect. In the words of Justin Bieber, can we still be friends?
Yeah. Can we still be friends?
Exactly. It's a great song.
It's a great song. I mean, dude, that was a great episode.
That was fantastic.
I feel like we only scratched the surface.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, like, by all means.
We have guests every week. We're gonna loop back to everyone, and we want to dive deeper on people's stories, and we definitely want to hear more about where you go from here, especially in your job hunt and stuff like that, in your career, like figuring it out.
Which is great because, like, there's more to me than being gay.
100%. There was just a lot of questions to ask.
And I'm happy about that.
And that just kind of took the time, but we should definitely have you back on again.
I had a great time.
Sometime
Good.
in the future, so we can, like, dive further into.
I hope you get good feedback. I'm saying from other people as well. Like, I just listen. Like, if this was educational, if it was helpful, if you got a good laugh out of it, then we did our jobs properly. Hopefully.
Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah.
You're natural. And if there's anything you want to, like.
So I have one more question before you leave.
Yeah.
Sorry. How do you feel about hearing your own voice? Because to me, I can't stand listening to my own voice. Like, you guys are running a podcast. Like, do you get over it?
How your voice sounds to me, how Robbie's voice sounds to me, fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
When I hear my voice, I'm like, why do I talk in my, like, why do I talk like, ooh? And,
but it is one thing that you get used to. I mean, like, at the beginning, it was definitely weird.
But the thing is, I'm sure my voice sounds normal to you guys.
Yeah, it totally sounds normal.
Not remotely.
So keep that in mind. Also, what I've found is I say some things on the podcast. Immediately after I say it, I go, oh, that's going to come off weird. I don't know if I hit that properly. For some reason, because it's a podcast, when you go watch it back, nothing sounds nearly as weird or bad. It always comes off with a good connotation. Even when you say, like, a bad joke or something offensive, I'm like, oh, I got to delete that. It's going to be offensive to people. I watch it back and I'm like, why does the intention show so clearly in a podcast? And I think it's because it's long form. There's so many words around what you're saying. They know exactly what your feeling is. You know what I mean?
Then I feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
And on that note, thank you for having me.
No problem.
And I
Of course.
hope, if anyone is listening to this, like, come. If they invite you, come. It's a great time. I had a great time.
Awesome,
and my beer's done, essentially.
I appreciate
They
it.
provide good beer.
Yeah. Awesome.
Love that. Thanks, dude. And on that note, we will see you next
Tuesday.
I'm hallucinated. I'm hallucinated.